pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have a motion to open the meeting?
Make that motion.
Motion?
Second.
10 seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. First item on the agenda tonight is the approval of minutes. Have you all gotten those and had a chance to review them?
Yep.
Any discussion or comments?
No.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. Second.
James seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Possible extension or abandonment of applications pursuant to town code. There's nothing on our docket tonight. Public hearings, the first one is 349 Maple Avenue, Renew LLC, 19-1-77. Applicant is appealing a notice of violation issued at April 27th, 2023 for unpermitted use. Applicant is requesting an interpretation that the permitted or special permit proposal can occur. The applicant will also seek an area variance to reduce the minimum lot size from 3 or 5 acres to 2.8 acres, 8 acres if deemed necessary. This is a continuation of a public hearing from before. Do we have someone from the applicant here?
Council
Yes,
and the
John DiPello, J.G. Law, and Mike Sandor.
motion to open it.
Yeah, do we have a motion to reopen that?
Yeah.
Public hearing?
Make a motion to reopen?
Ken motion second,
Second.
Sam seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
So,
Alright.
we left off really the holdup was that we were waiting on the county GML 239, which came through. I believe everybody got it relatively late in the afternoon. If you didn't, for what it's worth, it's a local determination. And I just remind you to grant only the minimum variance deemed necessary and adequate to remedy the difficulty imposed by the requirements of County Goshen Code in this situation. So beyond that, they didn't add anything. So usually when we adjourn out a public hearing, if there's any follow-up questions that came to mind over the 2 weeks, or any additional information that the applicant wishes to present, otherwise you guys can move to the 5 factors and deliberate.
We need to see if there's anything.
Yeah, I would imagine if you guys, I would start with the dais, right?
Yeah.
If there's anybody that has any additional questions or commentary beyond what's been said already, and then the applicant wants to add anything, and then we have the general public, whatever is.
Does anybody on this now have any questions? No comments?
No, good.
I'm fine as well.
Okay.
Does the applicant have anything to add to the record?
No, let's just, the board responds. I heard your intro. Just since the application was submitted, the building inspector did issue, a determination that this was a use that required 5 acres, but that it was a permitted use, in the zoning district. So we're at the ZBA. So just to clarify, we're looking for the area variance from the 5 acre requirement.
And I'll just note, from a refresher, and that's been pretty consistent, there was some inquiry regarding the neighboring lot, which is owned by applicant as well. The discussion there was that while that could be available as an option, that would also open up a larger potential use, whereas I think applicant has indicated that they would essentially agree to conditions if the board was going to grant the variance to limit the trucks, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, to 8, I believe it was.
Yes. Yeah. There's
With
6
the idea
there
that it
now,
would be
so
6, but 8 in the event that something
possible.
So we'd have to come back
Likely would be 6.
again. For what it's worth, contemplating that, there would be the alternative would be to subdivide and add the 5 acres, which would make the variance unnecessary, but would open up that property to a different or more expansive use, I guess. So that being said, I think that's kind of the summary. Does anybody everybody agree that that's a recitation that's gone on?
That's how I read
All
it.
right.
Now, these, if I may, these are semi-trucks, correct? These are large
The box
Yeah.
trucks.
box trucks or
They're
semis?
box trucks.
Anybody, sorry, Tom, do you wanna ask, are you, anything else from the dais or the applicant before we go to the, anybody from the public that wishes to speak?
Any other questions from us? And nothing else through you?
No.
from you guys? Is there anyone from the public that wants to comment on the project?
Does not appear. I just will note, citizen Chris Healy's comments from 2 weeks ago, as they would be part of the public hearing, which is continued in case anybody wasn't here. He lives down the road, called it a legacy property, seen change through years, but offered to limit size of usage and allow him to use the property. So that was the general commentary. So with that being said, if you want to move to put this to a vote, we can do that.
Okay, so we would close the public hearing first, correct?
Correct.
So do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
And we'll go with James.
Second.
10 seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll move to the 5-factor
Yep.
test.
We'll start with, Sam, Ken, James, Tom.
Sounds good.
All right? So, just to be clear then, in the lot from 3 to 5, 0.8 acres being necessary. Okay, so the only question on here is that, right? Because we already have the interpretation.
Right.
So the only thing being voted on would be that down to 2.8 acres, correct? Just to make sure,
Yeah.
okay, all right. So, Sam, as it relates to, the requested variance to 2.8 acres, reduced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance.
No, because nothing essentially is changing on the property.
Ken?
No.
And if you feel to add any other commentary or, if you're concurring with someone else, it just helps with the length or the detail of the decision. So feel free. James?
No, my understanding is this lot has been used for the same thing since the sixties, is that correct? So I don't believe it will.
Okay. And Tom?
I'll also say no. It's an existing sort of use that continues.
Okay. Sam, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance?
It could, we've discussed that it could, but then there would be other complications with that, and, the answer is yes.
The answer is yes with the explanation you gave. Okay. Ken?
Yes, same as Sam.
James? Yep. Tom?
I'd say yes, but that also, in addition to what Sam said about complications, it does open it up to other types of development that may not be concurrent with the use we intend there in that zoning district.
Okay. Sam, whether the requested area variance is substantial?
It is, strictly looking at the number from 5 to 2.8, it is.
Ken?
It is substantial.
Yes, it is, due to the percentage of acreage changing.
Tom?
Yes, it is. For all the reasons noted.
Okay. Sam, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district?
No, again, nothing is changing essentially, so there won't be any change to the environmental impact from the granting of the variance.
Ken?
No, nothing's changing.
James?
No.
Tom?
No.
And whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the ZBA, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of an area variance. Sam?
No, it's not self-created.
No.
Thank you, Ken. James?
No?
And no.
Okay. So taking into account the 5 factors just discussed, totality of the circumstances, no one factor being dispositive, going to go down the same order, asking whether it is your opinion that this area variance should be granted, and if so, any conditions that feel free to add to. I think there was already, it's understood that if it goes through that there would be the signed up for condition, but you can add, deduct, do whatever to that. So Sam, how do you vote?
Weighing the factors, I believe, I will vote in favor of granting the variance, and I will just comment that I will second the comments that you referenced, Rory, that Chris Healy made at the last meeting, that this is kind of what an area variance should be for. The property has maintained the same use for decades. The code has changed over that time, but the property hasn't, and the applicant should be punished for that.
Do we all have to be in agreement as to what the stipulations were of that, of this variance, so we're all on the same page? I know there's a maximum of the.
I think that I might have gone out of order on that. I confirmed with the applicant that they would be, that condition of limiting to 8 vehicles was understood. So that would be before the board as a condition, along with the normal general conditions that any planning board conditions are adhered to. So I would, that is something that you were acknowledging if you vote yes. But you
Right.
can
I wanna
say
make sure
yes, but I don't
vehicles-
want the conditions.
Yeah, but vehicles are a little vague. I wanna make sure that they currently have 6 box trucks, we're going to 8 box trucks.
I'm fine with that.
I don't wanna make sure they can turn into semis with trailers, et cetera.
Let's pin it down then.
So,
That's fair.
I think that's a fair,
I think so too.
Yeah.
yeah,
So let's clarify.
I'm not clear on semi versus box, if we could say 8 vehicles. of
yeah, I mean, a box truck is typically
Vehicle
gonna
could be a
be
Volkswagen Beetle,
Yeah.
or it could be a tractor trailer.
Yeah.
I don't think that, the way we've discussed it, we've talked about box trucks for the last 3 meetings. I don't think I'm comfortable going to a semi or a
What is the
trailer.
current vehicles?
Vehicles he uses are box trucks.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right, he knows better than I do.
So it would be 8 box trucks of similar size and use that are currently being used. The conditions do not run, the variance wouldn't run with the land, it would be tied to the current operation and applicant, and then the planning board conditions. So thank you, good catch, James. I took it for granted that we had already said it, but,
You still remain.
Yeah, that was my understanding. No change, I mean.
so I'm just
more or
gonna
less.
tie it to the current, the vehicles that are currently being used on that property, or for the applicant.
And I think we'd like to say.
Box trucks, I'll put it, yeah,
Yeah.
similar in size and type to the
Yeah.
current use, but that's, yeah. Okay, with that in mind, James,
Ken is next.
I vote.
sorry. Sorry,
With the conditions that we discussed.
okay, James,
yes.
I'm also a yes.
okay, congratulations, applicant.
Thank you very much.
We'll, get something out, to Tom to review and sign off on, and then get that out to you guys, okay?
I report.
All right, the
You sure?
next.
Just, yeah, just give,
Okay.
sorry, I just wanna finish my notes and let them.
I get it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Take
guys.
care.
Thanks.
Okay, sorry about that, Tom.
No,
I'm ready to go.
it's all good. So I'm just getting sorted this out here.
I'm on TV now.
All right, so the next item on the public hearing is a continuation of Northern Bear / Northern Enterprises, 20-1-39. Applicant requesting an area variance for relief of existing parking lot stalls along the front of the building. And it's for 97-48A, 4A, 1 and 2.
Good
Do
afternoon.
we need to vote to reopen that public hearing?
Correct, yep.
So, do we have a motion?
Motion to reopen the public hearing for Northern Bear Lord and Enterprises.
James seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So I'm just gonna kind of recap at least some of the notes I have in here that are probably relevant. If anybody doesn't need them recapped and you guys are ready to move forward, so be it. But I give a little
I think
overview.
a brief recap
Okay.
is always helpful.
So the originally, and certainly correct me if I'm wrong or anybody, the original approved site plan from 1983 shows 15 parking stalls in the front of the building, 10 immediately in front, 5 in front of the extension of the front face of the building. Seeking a variance for an additional set of parking stalls in the front of the building. And the impervious surface coverage, max impervious surface coverage as the, let me see if I can sum that up a little quicker. So we kind of covered that last time. It's less, this was the tricky part when Trino, when it's less than the maximum permitted by the code at 32.32. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's about half what's allowed.
So then we left off, the last pieces were the discrepancy between the maps and the issue of a prior condition regarding firewood. So I'll allow you guys, well, I'm not allowing you, you guys do what you want, but I would encourage you.
Well, I think it's the parking stalls along the road,
Right.
right, which is what they're seeking a variance for,
Mhm.
right? They're not
Correct.
technically, typically allowed there. Then there's some discrepancies with the map, but I think that really falls to the planning board to figure out.
Correct. If you do grant this, you just condition it for them to, whatever the planning board determines was the appropriate or the map relied upon for their decisions, essentially. Either way, it would require the variance.
Right.
So whether it's 10 or 12, it's gonna require it, right?
Exactly, and that.
And if it came down to that 2 spots jumping up from 10 to X amount or 12 to X amount, then, you know, that would be different, then you would have to have it ahead
Come
of
back
time.
for it,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, I'll start with you, on the board, on the dais. Does anybody have any?
I'd like to know the status of the firewood, what progress has been made, has it been moved?
The logs have been getting, well, there's a difference. The firewood's okay for him to have and sell. It's the logs that are there that is the issue. He's cutting up the logs, and as soon as they're complete, no further logs will be coming to the property.
And what progress are we at now? It's really been 6 weeks. right?
Dan,
At
where
least
you at
8
about
weeks.
now? The firewood
Yeah.
can stay, the logs have to go, correct? All right,
I was here, I wasn't here, but 13 years ago when I purchased the property. And I went through the planning board for my firewood. They told me I could have it. Okay, I made the parking lots bigger because they wanted me to blacktop. And I blacktopped, I put the garbage corrals in, I put signs in, I did everything. And for some reason, the plan was never signed. And now I'm back again. And it cost me another $13,000 for the planning board. And then I cut you guys a check for $6,800. And I've been working out of there for 15 years, selling firewood. And now all of a sudden there's a problem. Why is there a problem? How come nobody-
I'm, for the purposes of tonight, I would just, maybe start with the answer to the question, which was.
Well, I've been selling it, all winter I've been selling it.
No,
And my pile is diminishing every day. So, I don't know,
how
that's
much,
how I make my money. I
they're,
mean,
they're looking to find out how much of the logs are left.
there's probably about 35% is left.
Okay, and that's,
Just trying to determine if we're making progress toward that,
Well,
that's my point.
right. We just wanted to answer that. I'm sorry that you feel that we put you in this position. I just want to get the answer to that question, which was the remaining question for the board, to move forward on making a decision whether to grant the variance, so.
All right, but the way I'm looking at it is that the whole problem is the firewood. Is there a problem with my firewood?
It's not the firewood, it's the logs. the law.
Yeah, but the logs turn into firewood.
Right.
I mean, you don't just show up with firewood, you gotta have something to cut up. I mean,
We'll deal with that later.
all right, well,
It's just our understanding that that's a stipulation for us to move forward on this, and we're just going by we're just local residents like you.
I understand, but I'm just saying,
Everybody has the right to make their own money, if that's put up in front of us, I'm sorry, I mean,
No,
if that's put in front of us, we just have to have that factored in, because that's just what we're told that we have to follow. I understand completely, again, I'm just a neighbor like you are, but we have to have that factored into the decision, because that's what was put in front of us, so we kinda need to know if the logs are there for now and just until next winter, and the logs are gonna be there again, I mean, you're gonna have an issue as well, and we don't want that to be the case.
Can I ask you a question? Who does these logs bother? I have over 500 signatures at Northern Bear.
No idea.
the code.
It's just a-
It's a code issue, it's not a
Because we've been inspected,
yeah.
and we've never had a problem with the fire inspector coming out there. I get inspected for Northern Bear, he gets inspected. So I just need to know, this is how he makes his living?
All right,
I
I'm
make
gonna
this
cut this
my
off,
living.
but that's not the point of this, that's a different board to go to. That's
Okay,
this
all
board.
right, that's
I'm,
cool.
and none of this, I'm trying to just keep this tied to what we're trying to do here today. I think there's a couple different, boards that would be more appropriate for that discussion to be had in front of.
Right, I do know that.
Okay, and forgive me if that comes across any other way, like James is trying to, we're not here to hurt you guys, we're here to make a decision off of what was presented to us. The need for the variance is what it is, the code says X, you guys need Y, so you need a variance, right? And one of the conditions that was set down in a prior site plan that was not signed off on was that these things are supposed to be removed. So, that was a condition that was set forth to be asked about. You're working on it, okay? I understand the dynamics, it's not easy to get rid of all that stuff, and sometimes it happens by attrition. So we're just asking kind of what the plan was, since that was a condition. Because I can tell you that if it's not done, the condition, it's not gonna help you, so I just, okay? We're all just trying to work through a problem, all right? It's just that it's not, by the time it gets to us, we're here to try and fix a problem. If there's a problem in the code that doesn't match up with your property or your ability to operate your business, you're here trying to get that variance, so I'm just trying to get to the answer, okay? So I'll just ask the follow-up then, if it kind of happens as you move the firewood and we're heading towards, I don't know if this is a good firewood season or bad, but I don't know if we're ending that part of the season, is it reasonable that that stuff would be gone in the form of logs? Is there a time period that's reasonable to expect that? Because it might be a condition to get the variance. You gotta clear them, and then the variance is good. It's not necessarily a post-condition. So just, is there a way to project that?
It's most likely gonna be a condition at the planning board also.
Right, and we, but it's certainly, I would imagine not gonna leave here without it being a condition of the ZBA. They can double up on it, but it was presented to us that way. But is it reasonable to assume that they will eventually take care of themselves by way of you selling the firewood? And is there a way to understand when that projects out? Or are we back in this same spot in the fall when firewood, I don't know firewood season, I'm just going off.
Yeah, it's pretty much over.
Right, it would be winter time, makes sense, right? So, I don't know how much that affects.
I mean, quite a bit, a lot of it's gone. I mean, there's only a little bit left. I mean, I can probably get the guys just to cut it up and throw it into pieces, but it's gonna take a while.
Yeah, I don't know when it becomes firewood, I don't know what you have to cut it from to get it to firewood or satisfactory, but I don't know if you guys have any follow-ups or any way to be, not putting the rest of the factors in play, but as far as satisfying what if any conditions would be ultimately voted on when you come to a vote? Is there some?
I think it would be a precondition for me that we would resolve the firewood issue, because that's been outstanding for a time. That's how I would look at it myself.
So a precondition is that the logs are removed, if you got to a point where a variance was going to be granted, it would be a precondition of,
That's
Of
how
the
I would look
variance
at it.
being-
Others may feel differently.
With all due respect to the chairman, I don't agree. If the planning board previously had some sort of condition involving firewood, that's the planning board's issue, and if that plan wasn't approved, then that isn't even something I'm necessarily gonna adhere to by something in writing. I would maybe consider it that it was
Sure.
considered, but for the sake of what we're determining here, the on-site parking being in front of the building, I don't think those things have an overlap personally.
yeah, and you have to catch all of the planning board conditions if you feel that it went that way, but, and you have your
Yeah, that's
thoughts?
actually a good point. It's a good point.
Okay, so I think we may have resolved our log firewood issue, okay? All right,
That's a good point.
Thank you.
you got it, you got it, we're all trying to work through it. All right, so is there any other, that was sitting out there, 239,
Yeah, it's good.
yeah.
That's what-
Yeah, so local determination on the 239, again, just reminding us to go through the factors and keep the variance as minimal as necessary to effectuate the ability to operate their property. Thank you, Grace. Does anybody else have any questions for the applicant or before we open up to the public? I don't know.
I do. I
Yeah,
want to ask,
please.
like, you mentioned that you put some signage up for when you expanded the parking, because you were told by the planning board that in order to blacktop it, like, can you,
That's in front of my store.
right,
The plant,
Maybe I could explain it.
13 years ago when we were here, not here, but in front of,
We had gone to the planning board over a dozen years ago. We had gotten approval, we submitted a resolution of approval and a neg deck in the application to be sent to this board. And I apologize, I'm not an attorney, I'm an engineer and a surveyor, so I don't have a law behind me. Just more common sense I'm trying to apply. We got the approval, Dan did all the improvements that were on the plan. However, and along with those improvements, he got the C of O for the 2 rental units, and a hair salon moved in there, and the hair salon was in there for the past dozen years, 13 years. They moved out, and when new renters came to the town to inquire about the rental units, that's when they pulled the file and found that there were no signed plans. And because there were no signed plans, that's the issue we're at today. So we're back to the planning board for reapproval. And basically, the plans we submitted to you, the as-built plans should have been signed back a dozen so years ago. They didn't get signed, so now we're back to the planning board, and because of the zoning, now we're before you for the variance.
That's
But he did all the improvements, the town building inspector signed off on all the improvements at the time. He got his C of O, and the hair salon moved in.
and if I may real quick, I'm just gauging whether in my mind, like, there's something there in terms of signage. I know that I've driven by it 100 times, I mean, it's been there, I've seen it, but like, and I don't know if it makes sense to have screening there, but that's what I'm weighing, whether or not we give it approval, and this is for me, whether or not I would want there to maybe be, you put some plants in or something that would grow and create a screen, but I don't know if that makes sense. And
well, I can't because there's a transmission line, a gas line under
There
there,
you go,
and
okay,
they only
all
want me
right.
to go near it.
That gentleman works for the gas line,
Well, that's a significant factor in
so
making
he
my
knows.
When
thoughts
I
on the
was doing the
conditions.
parking lot, when I was doing the
Yes.
parking lot, they had a guy from the gas company watching me the whole time. And the town had me put the blacktop and stripe it, and they wanted all those parking spots. Now, that's why we're here. And
I
I'm
believe
like,
you.
it's
Yep.
I mean, they're the ones who told me to put the blacktop in.
Sam,
No, that's good.
you can make in the decision, not a condition, but a suggestion that the planning board look to screening options. And even though it's not really it's the applicant who, you can suggest it to them, and then they come back, and if they're height variance, it's always nice if you can screen some of it, but I don't know, making a condition of screening, maybe a suggestion to the planning board, and
No, yeah, I was just,
No, it's
That-
good. And
more info is helpful in terms of this. Let's-
not knocking it, just was trying to qualify how to present it maybe in the, it could be a condition. I just don't know that, how to quantify, because we don't get into the picking of what kind of screening per se, that's more of the planning board's.
Right.
You know, the general concept of screening, but I'm not, I don't know, so.
Can I say something about the screening too?
Yeah, go for it.
That, if you ever try to get out of that park lot on both sides, even Remy's right on this
yeah.
side, it's impossible.
That's,
would be
that's.
too-
Accident.
There's
Yeah.
people getting smashed up there all day long. And if you put a tree where they can't see, it's bad enough, you can't, I mean,
It's bad.
Right.
and they should, what they should do is change the speed limit up further to 35. They got a 55 all the way to the custard stand, and then it's 35.
Oh.
So these people are flying there, so if you put trees in there or whatnot, I'm a landscaper, I'll plant trees as many as you want, but I don't wanna do it, you know?
You're right, yeah.
Well, only if
Yeah,
they're ready
there's-
to hear me, speak out at turn.
She works for me,
Uh-huh.
and she can tell you.
It's
and
really hard as
You
they
can't-
get in and out of there.
I don't know if any of you's ever been in my store or there, to get in and out, it is a nightmare.
Right.
The accidents, Officer Jim Post, who's the lieutenant of Goshen PD, he will give you anything you want for reports of the amount of accidents. It's ridiculous already, and there's not even a tree there.
Well, you're highlighting a legitimate concern, because as a
Yes.
board, we're kind of doing a retroactive approval of an expansion of parking spots on a busy road where we don't want there to be too many people honestly going in and out with the high speeds of the road. And these are things to consider, but I think you've adequately explained why screen doesn't make sense. I mean, that, you know,
Yes.
that's clear, that's
And
common.
the planning board is, obviously, it's a fallback to that as well, and the
Right.
DOT, which, as of now, we have no commentary from them. So, again, those are, it just, you can make suggestive reminders to the
I'm all
planning
set
board.
though.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions or commentary? Okay. Folks, do you have anything else you wish to add?
No?
Okay. Does anybody from the public wish to speak that's not spoken already?
I just agree totally with, it's really hard to get in and out of there. I work there every day. Customers, you know, complain that it's so hard to get in and out. I agree with Dan that it should be lowered, the speed limit. But putting trees and blocking people's view is not gonna be helpful in that situation, I think. I mean, it would be pretty, but it wouldn't be helpful.
And I'd like to say something.
Yes, sir.
You should fix the culvert there.
Oh,
That's a big problem.
Let's work on your variance.
yeah,
You got it, now you got me
It's a
fixing
bitch.
stuff, all right?
Very dangerous right there.
that ditch is horrible.
You're in front of the wrong board, all right? Anybody else from the public want to say something before we close the public hearing? Tom, up to you.
Then, in that case, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion closed.
Second. 20 seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Quick.
you want to move to a vote here?
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
should.
Okay. All right, same order, same questions. I know you know them, Sam, but I'm gonna read them into the record. Whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood, strike that. Do you wanna discuss, since we did this last time out of order, any potential conditions that, and you can, when we get to the end, or you wanna do them at the end of the 5 questions, set potential conditions?
I don't have any.
Just the general conditions, planning board?
Yep.
Okay. All right, that being said, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance. Sam?
No, this has been in existence for the past 13 years.
Okay, Ken?
No.
James?
No.
Tom?
No.
Okay. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. Sam?
I would say yes, but that, the caveat being that requiring the applicant to rip up parking lot spots while something that could be doable is not something that I see as very realistic, but it is.
Well, feasible is a word
It is,
that's
it
particularly
is.
chosen there, right?
Yeah.
Ken?
Agrees with Sam, yes.
James?
I-
We're talking about whether the.
No, but I thought this was no, and
Oh.
you agreed with, okay, so.
Well, it's the,
He's saying it's
so
not
he's
feasible.
saying maybe,
I don't
he
think,
said
I don't,
maybe.
no problem.
I didn't know that
don't-
was an option, but
I got
Sam
you.
just made it, he's
I
a
got you.
lawyer, so he made it a
They
maybe.
did everything they're supposed to do, I say no, there's no other.
Okay, and Tom?
Yeah, I'd say it's not feasible at this point.
Okay. Whether the requested area variance is substantial? And this is,
I'd say no.
okay, Ken,
No.
No.
Tom?
I'd say it is.
Okay. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district? Sam?
No, it will not.
Ken?
No.
James?
No.
Tom?
No.
Whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the ZBA, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Sam?
I'd say no, even though there was a question of what happened 13 years ago with the planning board. No, to reiterate what James said, they've done everything that they needed to do.
Okay, Ken?
No.
James?
No, just going on the fact that, the trust that, with the exception of that signing off on that back 13 years ago, and I would say no.
Okay, Tom?
I'd say no for the reasons that James just stated.
Okay, in light of the answers given, 5 factors, taking all of them into account in totality, none of them being dispositive. Sam, where do you stand on the granting of this area variance, either in its entirety or with any conditions that are not generally, stated, any specific conditions?
I'm in approval of granting the variance without any specific conditions.
Okay, Ken?
Yes.
James?
Yes, and I would just pass on the wood aspect of it. It's really not in our reasonable jurisdiction to be factoring that in any way, from my understanding, and pushing that back to the planning board to make their final decision.
I will note that. And Tom?
I'll agree with James and all the others. Yes.
Okay, so general conditions and just an acknowledgement that the firewood log issue is for the planning board. So congratulations, or re-congratulations, I guess, but.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Maybe give a heads up to the DOT about that issue.
Yeah,
Seems like that's
I have.
more their purview, all right? Congrats.
Thank
Take
you.
care, guys. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
So that concludes the public hearing for tonight. We have 2 more items for discussion.
Can we jockey over, well, actually, you're here for Lunar Great Dane. Sorry, let's get that out of the way. My apologies. I forgot there was an applicant here.
Yep, so we'll start with Lunar Great Dane, Lunar Realty Great Dane, 20-1-33.1. Applicant applied to the planning board for an amended site plan approval. Following variances are needed: impervious surface coverage, landscape buffer, outdoor storage, and we need to discuss the draft decision.
Yes, so you were in receipt of, everybody's in receipt of the draft decision. So let's start there. Is there any commentary as to the decision?
I don't have any.
Okay. The holdup was just getting some details I couldn't get off of the recording. I couldn't tell, so I had to go back to the applicant to see if, and you know what the engineer did? He gave me a map back, and I said, I see what we're doing here. I'm gonna give the lawyer the map, and then I'm like, no. But we figured everything out, so I'm comfortable from my end, and also I had the assistance of Attorney Naughton to make sure we were right on representing what the variances were, so that anybody that's reading this decision in 10 years could know what it meant. It was a little vague, so we tightened it up. Applicant was very patient with it, so If there are no objections to the decision, I would encourage its signature.
You all had a chance to review that versus what we did? So we tentatively approved before? I mean, it's-
Yeah, I mean, it's
the same in intent, I think.
Yeah, I don't think there's any, just a clarification on one of the variances to make sure that it was understood, because it was the structure, the standalone structure, which was what it was, and it was just asking to be granted to be in as is, but they didn't have all the details of the structure itself to describe it in case it got expanded upon in X amount of years, so we wouldn't have a confusion over that. So other than that, it was the details that we had throughout the process. So applicants here, take a motion to allow the chairperson to sign off on behalf of the ZBA on that decision. That would be it.
Any questions or comments, or?
No.
Anybody else? Okay, so do we have a motion to approve that draft decision for my signature?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Seems-
Good enough. Just it stylistically a little cleaner to do it this way, so that's what you'll see in the future, is that you'll see the
That's good.
decisions on the agenda presented to you with the ability to comment before they are memorialized. I'll have it queued up here, and then we can go from there, okay?
Cool.
So I would not talk yourself out of this decision, so you did a great job tonight. I don't even know if there's anything on there, is that just an intimidation? You know,
I was told to always bring a drawing to a
yes,
meeting.
I like it. I like it. There's nothing in my briefcase, so I was always told to bring a briefcase, so. Anyway, congrats. All right, we'll have that, it's gonna be memorialized, and then we can get it from Grace.
Very good, thank you.
Cool, thank
You
you.
didn't bring a drink, we've already yours.
Don't worry, Jody, you got it. I already, okay, so just give us one moment to
Sure.
recall the next matter. All right, so the next item is 35 and 39 Everett Road, 2-1-10.2 and 2-1.6. The applicant requests an interpretation that one zoning code section 97-59B1 and 4 are applicable to the enforceable against the operations occurring at 39 Everett, and two, zoning code section 97-47F does not prohibit the application to and/or enforcement of sections 97-59B1 and 4 of the code, of the zoning code as against 39 Everett, because under the circumstances, the applicant and/or enforcement would not result in an unreasonable restriction or regulation of the farm operations at 39 Everett.
Okay, so before we begin, if I could just, I do have a conflict, which does happen in these municipalities. So I'm not gonna be the attorney facilitating this applicant through the process. Ms. Cross is aware, I had an opportunity to advise her of that. However, we have quorum. It's an initial presentation. The applicant's here, and it makes sense for them to present tonight. Ms. Cross knows that I'm just gonna be facilitating this along on ministerial end for tonight, and we'll have substitute counsel here for this applicant the next time they come back. So that being said, I trust that Jody knows how to carry the ball here, so once you guys open it up for the applicant to present, I will allow Ms. Cross to go. Is that everybody good with that?
I'm
All right.
fine, I'm fine with that.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Brady.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
Good evening, Jody Cross from the firms Aaron and Steinmetz, here on behalf of Carrie and Sean Boo, the owners of 35 Everett. I'm here with my colleague Matt Behrens and Mr. Boo. As you mentioned, we're here in connection with an application for an interpretation regarding the applicability of 9747F to the activities going on next door to our property on the shared boundary line with the neighbors at 39 Everett, which is owned by Stone Silo Farm LLC. So I don't know if, just to advise everyone for the record, 9747F exempts certain activities from zoning when compliance with those provisions will result in an unreasonable restriction or regulation of farm operations. So what the Boos are ultimately seeking is an interpretation that the zoning is presumptively applicable, and that even to properties like 39 Everett, that's in the county ag district, and it's really up to the farm operation to demonstrate through empirical evidence that the application of the zoning code would result in an impact to their farm operations or an unreasonable restriction to their farm operations. Excuse me. Apologize, I'm losing my voice. By way of brief background, and this is all set forth in our letter that we submitted, the Boo's property is a little over 5 acres. The adjoining property to the north is 36.74 acres. Both properties are in the RU district, but the neighboring property is also in the county ag district. For a while, but at least since November 2024, the Boos have been raising some concerns about outdoor storage and vehicle parking that's happening right along the boundary, the shared boundary line. There's horse trailers, a chicken coop, fencing equipment, a dumpster, tractor trailers, septic truck, and other large vehicles on the property line. And we maintain that these actions are in violation of the zoning code. For example, 9759B1 prohibits outdoor storage that's not screened from public view of the neighboring properties. So right now, keeping that stuff right on the property line, it's not screened from the neighboring property, it's completely visible. 9759B4 prohibits the parking of commercial vehicles where it's visible from adjoining properties. There is an exception that says if they're being used for farm operations, they are permitted to park in a visible way, but they still need to be 100 feet set back from the property line. And these trucks, even if they could demonstrate that the septic truck that's labeled with the neighbor's personal commercial business is actually used for farm operations, it still needs to be set back 100 feet. And those vehicles that are not used for farm operations shouldn't be visible from the Boo's property. So we brought these issues to the building inspector, and he was unsure of the applicability of 9747F. And his suggestion was that we come here, and so here we are. Frankly, we find it a little difficult to believe that there's nowhere else on the 37 acres to put the items that are being stored or these trucks. Admittedly, there's been a breakdown in neighborly relations between the two, and there's a lot of spiteful actions going on, intentional destruction of our client's landscaping, removal of mature trees and other actions, but that's not before your board. What we're asking for is this interpretation that the building inspector can enforce 9759B1 and 4, notwithstanding the provision that would exempt certain zoning under, 9747F. So that's what we're here for. We'd like to ask the board to set a public hearing, and we're here to answer any questions.
So, I don't know that the board can do the public hearing without council's advice. Sorry, I jumped in. I apologize.
I think if we were gonna do this, I would like to have Frank here, because we do wanna have representation too, but I think we can still move forward with public hearings and such. I don't think we need to delay that, given that you can't really weigh in right now.
Well, I can, general stuff, you need the 239, right?
Yeah.
So, or presumably we need a 239, right?
I'm not sure you're doing an interpretation.
Actually, you know what? I think that was exactly what the renewed issue was. Give me 1 moment. Yeah.
No, we haven't put it out there to do anything, so-
Interpretation of it.
Yeah, they would have enough time to
Let's
send
say,
that in regardless.
requirements. Yeah, I would assume this would not, it doesn't affect the county road or anything, so. I can't advise them on it. You may be right, Ms. Cross.
I could confirm. I don't believe that a 239 is required for an interpretation. If I'm wrong, I'll check the code as soon as I'm at home. I can call the. Okay.
So we're maybe waiting 30 days out anyway. Is that?
Yeah, that's
So-
generally, I think with any,
So that's time for, if we do need a 239, there's time.
We also want to have council, and I don't know council's availability on
Yeah.
the dates, so maybe conditionally, yeah, I'll talk. So either conditionally set it based on availability of the attorney, but I don't want to waste their time setting out notices for a public hearing that ultimately council isn't available for. I don't anticipate that being the issue.
Should we tentatively set it upon the attorney being available for the 13th of May?
Are you able to be back here in 2 weeks, the 15th?
Well,
Yes.
2 weeks wouldn't give 30 days,
So-
in case they need 239,
Oh, okay.
right? And then 60 days or 45 would give
All right, I'll let them
enough
know.
time to do
I
that.
got you, yeah.
Whatever you guys want to do.
Go ahead.
I-
Whatever you guys feel comfortable with, I just want to make sure council is available, that's all. But you
Yeah.
can set it and we can always adjust.
Yeah, so I'd make a motion for a potential, or for a public hearing
One
for the 13th of May. That'll give us more than 30 days in case we do need a 239, and then we can also verify.
Can we engage with the applicant? Do we need to, like, can we?
Yeah, you
should we
guys
ask
could,
the
yeah,
question
absolutely.
Before we
use-
vote on this, or can we vote on it and set it and still?
I
engage with
would,
it?
ask any questions you have now, take advantage of the, for the attorneys here and the applicants here, and if there's things you wanna know so that the next time isn't wasted, feel free,
I
yeah.
don't want to do it out of
You-
order.
no, no, no,
Don't
you're
go
fine,
ahead.
you're.
We don't need to, we can, let's ask questions before we set it.
What's up?
Um,
I wanna go to the extra one and then make sure that Kelly or Rob can be here, whoever's gonna be.
Should be on the 6th.
I don't wanna set it,
That wouldn't be.
if it's far enough.
It's not quite 30 days, right?
I would set it out to the date that James said, because I wanna make sure that the other two council, our municipal attorneys, are gonna make sure that they have enough time to be available on that Tuesday, because Tuesday's a popular night in the
And I
municipal
don't want to
world.
push it out more if we didn't get it right, so.
I think that gives enough time for us to get council here and make sure that's all right.
Okay. But
No.
go ahead, Matt.
Um,
We'll let Sam ask his question before we vote on that.
yeah,
17.
And I just,
Jody, I'm sorry.
these things on the property line are affecting their quiet use and enjoyment of the property, so we don't want to push it out any further than that. We would love to have it even sooner, but we understand the
So-
need for council.
You guys put on whatever date you want. I just, my only concern is either you're gonna be adjourning it and sending out notices again but you'll know way
Right.
ahead of time. I mean, you guys could set it, condition the public hearing being set on May, whatever that first one is, condition on council being available, and if not, it goes to the other date. We'll have that answer, and then the conditions will just kick in. Is that?
We would appreciate that.
All right,
The
so then-
sooner we could do it, the better.
So it's just a condition on council being available on that first, which would be 30 or so days out. I don't think a 239 is needed.
Mhm.
And if council is not available, then it goes to the next date automatically. And prior to them getting names and sending out public hearing notice, okay? Because I'll have that answer within a couple days for,
Right, we need 10 days to send notice, I'm
Yeah.
assuming? Is that-
Yeah.
I can confirm it on Thursday night.
cool. So we'll figure it out. So just,
Maybe
the
okay,
motion would be
perfect.
to set a public hearing for May, whatever,
May 6th.
condition upon availability, council.
We're just verifying that date, right? It's every 2 weeks, so,
It's May 6th.
so we're not gonna have it every 2 weeks. That's,
It's the first and third,
First and third.
First and
not
third.
every 2 weeks.
all right.
So it's
an
mostly,
extra
it's
Tuesday
mostly
in
every
there.
2 weeks.
I don't know what it is.
You got
I show up.
you got a
Tell me
fifth
to show up,
Tuesday or
I'll show
fifth
up.
Happy
Thursday.
April Fools.
All right,
Fifth
fair enough.
Tuesdays and fifth Thursdays are very popular among municipal councils.
yeah. So like, I appreciate the fact that you're using the board. This is the reason that the board is here to try to facilitate this. But it is a mess. I mean, you're living it, and so one thing I'm looking at the visual, and I see some trees were planted, right? Like, I guess one question I have is like, what do you like want ultimately to happen? Like the items to be moved?
Moved
Like-
or screened. If because they took down a whole line of mature trees, so if they planted trees and screened it, then it's screened.
Okay.
It's just about following the zoning
Is
code.
that new planting in any way resembling?
That landscaping was done on my side of the property
Okay.
as a result of the removal of the old growth bushes and shrubs that Tony said, oops, my bad.
Mhm.
I would like the fence ideally moved 100 feet onto his property, giving me a 100-foot landscape buffer between me and his property, which I believe is in line with an equine farm, which he most certainly has.
And just like, not because it's really relevant to what we're deciding here, but because if we are gonna have a public hearing, I assume there are gonna be people here on both sides expressing themselves. What point did you get to in terms of trying to amicably, like, resolve this? I mean,
I think amicable relations have broken down quite
long,
some
long
time
ago.
The police were called to the house on 2 occasions.
Okay.
I do not want to have a third time.
And like even just getting attorneys to talk to each other to try and figure it out, none of that,
I
like,
haven't been told they have counsel.
understood.
Obviously, we're always willing to talk to counsel and talk to the other side and try and settle things amicably if that's.
When I had asked
if
Tony
that's a
to
possibility.
just simply move the fence and move his stuff, he said he's a farm, he can do whatever he wants. In fact, he said if I were to keep asking him, he would put his cow manure there, which I believe is also in violation of a farming code. You're not allowed to keep animal refuse on your neighbor's property. This is just quite simply, I am moving from the area and I did not sell my house.
So.
Understood.
That's it, that's all I'm saying.
There's
There's things, so I would really prefer to deal with
Yeah,
the nice way
you
to say it.
guys and.
you know, I'm just trying to get a little bit of an understanding.
Yeah, sure.
Like, you know.
Look, it's also
Why you're
helpful, that's why we're
unfortunately
here for this interpretation, because if the neighbors are told that, yes, you need to comply with zoning, then at least maybe we can open the discussions.
It's fair. That's what I got.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, so do we want to move to set that?
Yeah, so the motion will be moved to set a public hearing on May 6th, conditioned upon the availability of council. Should council not be available, it will move to the next available ZBA agenda, conditioned upon council's availability.
I'll make that motion.
Good job.
Seconded.
Sam seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Ms. Cross.
So the next meeting
As
is
soon as
the
I have it
15th
confirmed,
of
I'll send
April?
you the notices.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Right? 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
And I
2 weeks
think,
from now?
Yeah,
are there public hearings on for that meeting?
yes.
So
Yes.
you have 6 week onward.
Yep. And then the two that you were mentioning. Thank you guys.
Have a good night, thank you.
So take care, sir.
Is Gumwood coming back?
Yeah.
The next meeting is
in 2
on.
weeks.
Have you driven by that? Have you guys?
I did, yeah.
Yeah?
I mean, well, it's just a,
Well, James drove the wrong way at first.
well, no, I didn't, I never, no, I did not, and it's on, I mean, you have the Otter Kill, which is adjacent to the property, so I'm eager to hear his engineering prowess on how he's gonna not affect the Otter Kill and also raise the property.
Yeah.
I'm open to
He's still
listening.
supposed to be sending me that correspondence
Also-
that I'll forward to you.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not trying to stifle the conversation about it, but
Are we allowed to have a conversation?
Yeah, you guys can have a conversation. You're in quorum, it's public, so it's a public discussion if you want to discuss anything. But,
yeah, it's an interesting piece of property, the way everything comes together there with the river. and-
Yeah, I mean, I've seen what happens at the Otter Kill,
Here,
and,
recording.
you know, I'm eager to figure out where the water will go when there is a rise, and you see where it happens at the golf course. Pretty substantial, seems to
Yeah.
go pretty far, without any thought of how it gets there. Above bridges, 8 feet, 10 feet higher than where it sits, and,
Right.
you know, I think, my biggest.
Right now, it's probably as,
Oh, it's fine
Super
now,
high.
but I mean, you know, again, we've seen when it rains like heavily over the summer that it literally takes on hundreds of acres of land that you wouldn't think water would hit, so.
Yeah.
We have a responsibility, I would feel, is that, you know, if we make a decision on this, the next owner that buys the property, will they end up with a property that is completely waterlogged? And in essence, it's our responsibility to make sure that we protect future residents. And again, when he gives us an idea of the engineering idea as to how it's not gonna affect the waterway, I'm eager to listen, and have an open mind.
I second that, I walked it and it's wet, it's wet.
You know, I mean, you can definitely figure out a way to keep a house above it, it's just, there's still property that's gonna be
And there's
lived
still
in.
roads and
Yeah.
things that need to be.
And it's fenced out, I mean, I think you can't go past that for a number of different reasons. I don't know necessarily exactly why it's fenced in the end of that property. Yeah, I don't know what those are for exactly, but.
And this property is different, I'll drive by it, but it's different characteristics from some of the other ones around it.
No, it's just,
Not
it's just.
dramatically, it's a
just
little lower.
It's just lower and it just, you know.
Are the other ones gated? Are they like?
The houses are mounted a little.
But I mean, they've been there
But
since
they're
the seventies.
higher.
The ones that have been there, I think, have been since the seventies or eighties.
70s.
So, you know, it's been a very, very long time, or nobody
Right.
built in this area for, I'm sure, a number of reasons that we'll later find out. So.
Well, they said that that property had been sold numerous times.
Yeah, but that's not really, lots of properties that probably
Yeah,
get
James's house has been sold a few times. Not for a long, not gonna be sold.
40 years. And the property across the street's in the same boat too.
across the street.
Across it, from it.
Well, aren't they, they're side by side, aren't they?
They're side by side, but there's one across that's not asking for this same variance, but it's my understanding you can't build on that for the same reason.
Oh, it's a third property that's
Third
not
property
built.
altogether, and it's
built on.
not involved in this, but it.
Do they own all three and only going for these two?
No, I
They
don't think, I think they're all separate ownership. or
Okay.
different ownership.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so, do we have a motion to conclude tonight?
We sure do. I'll make a motion.
All right.
Second?
It was
Second,
first
all in favor?
motion.
Hey, what